generation for multiple fluid dynamics experiments. My name's Adam Doherty. This is Andy Meyer and Eric Gillespie. So for our project, our applications are lab-on-chip devices, where we have micro-mixing and micro-valves. Some lab-on-chip devices that you can purchase today include pregnancy tests or maybe a heart attack risk test. So rather than sending your blood off to a lab off-site and wait weeks for the result, you're going to get it in minutes. Some of the problems we have is we have to have laminar flow within our channels, because that's what microchannels within these devices have. And we want to be able to increase the mixing. That's why we decided to have the T-junction within our tube. Now, with the T-junction, we'll be able to change the Reynolds number, which is essentially the velocity, and we'll be able to see what kind of mixing we can get. Once we figure this out, we'll be able to contribute to researchers who want to know how much mixing they want at what speed. We have a short video for you, and this will show our setup as we have it so far, and go through our deliverables.
So the video showed our project up to this point. These are the deliverables again. These were all addressed in the video. It's not necessarily in this order, but these are 6 deliverables as were mentioned in that video. Now our project is being governed by these design constraints. There were 4 main things that we wanted to consider. Economic, we needed the entire flow set up to fall within our senior design budget, which is $450. Manufacturability, we wanted our system to be able to be manufactured by any other person in just a common machine shop like what we have here on campus. Sustainability, our system should be able to last other senior design groups or be reproduced by other researchers do something very similar to what we are doing. And publishable, our main focus is to make a significant contribution to the fluid dynamics field. So we are doing things that are under-researched or unresearched altogether. So those are design constraints. So the engineering process that we're using is very similar to a typical engineering design process, as you can see by this. But what makes ours different is that we're using computational research research to drive our design throughout the entire process. What this means is we're conducting simulations every step of the way to verify current designs, to design new setups, and to verify our results. So throughout this presentation, you'll see several images from simulations because the majority of our time that we haven't been working in the lab on a physical setup, we've been doing simulations to verify our current setup.
Okay, so this is a portion of the system that we implemented to completely fulfill our deliverable. We were able to implement a system that can use multiple pumps with higher flow rates to give us a range of Reynolds numbers from 1 to 1,000. And also each of the 3 inlets, or each of the 3 branches can be either an inlet or an outlet so that we can observe a variety of flow cases, and they're pictured here. We did determine that if you happen to accidentally direct the flow inward on all branches, you'll end up with a messy result. Okay, this is an example of the computational research driving the design of our system. So after each of the side branches, we have this curved section of tubing, and after this curved section, the flow is not going to be fully developed. As you can see in this image here, it's kind of forced up against this side, and as it exits that curved radius, it's still kind of pushed to the outside here and begins to become more uniform as you move along the straight lane. We need it to be uniform and fully developed before it enters the flow sensor, just because we would likely have skewed measurements if we had this kind of off-kilter velocity profile as it enters the flow meter. So these pictures on the right are cross-sectional slices of the straight length of tubing. So this is at the beginning of the straight length here. It's kind of forced to one side, and as you move along the length, it becomes more uniform. Through these simulations, we were able to verify the length needed to return to the fully developed profile.
For our design, we needed to know where the flow was actually fully developed. So we implemented this design to tell us where our flow is fully developed for a certain Reynolds number, a certain velocity. So as you saw in the video, our data reads in stuff constantly, and this will move our indicator to a point where it is actually fully developed. We made progress. Our setup right now could do experiments not as well as we would like to have them. They couldn't probably be publishable, but we're going to make improvements. One of our improvements is a printed circuit board. This will allow us to be able to reproduce our circuit at any university anywhere around the world. We just send them the files for this printed circuit board, and they can make the circuit board, and they can do their own experiments using this setup, because there's thousands of different experiments you can do with this setup.
So the entire setup is being focused around being able to get real-time outputs and be more usable in that way. So it had to be programmed in several different steps. We're using an Arduino Mega because it has the input and output pins that we need. So we programmed the first part to just take the sensor inputs and ultimately display them to the monitor. So our monitor is giving us a real-time feed of all the volumetric flow rates, velocities, pressures, entry lengths, and Reynolds numbers. So once we were able to get all of those continuously outputting to the screen, so first so that we could verify when the fluid is actually fully developed for the running system. But once we were able to get that, then we needed to institute a switch to start sampling the values. So we use sampling of the data so that we can average over a large range of samples, and that average would be indicative of the actual parameters in the system, because there's always slight variations in sensors in a running system. So the next thing that we implemented was the servo for the entry length indicator, our automated Getty mapping device. And the first thing we wanted to do was just make sure it could get close to the entry length, but when, just to reduce any error, we instituted a ping sensor for a feedback control so that by the second attempt, it would always hit the entry length. So So there's just a small excerpt of our code. The code is like 280 lines long. We didn't use anything from the internet. It's all written from scratch, just in Arduino's IDE. So our third deliverable, again going back to how computational research is driving our design, this is a simulation showing the entry link for combining flow in a T-junction. So the blue and the red here is the differential velocity in this direction, and the green is where the differential velocity is zero. So by definition, when the differential velocity is zero, then the fluid is fully developed. So by this point up here, the fluid is fully developed. So one simulation takes about 2 hours to set up and then a couple of hours to run even on the cluster. So each dot represents a single simulation that we've done just for that entry link setup. So every dot is a single simulation. So these results don't necessarily mean anything yet, but the idea is that running simulations over a range of Reynolds numbers can get us trends that will then become relevant to the overall fluids research. So again, doing the same process for entropy generation, we suspect that there is a correlation between entropy generation and mixing efficiency, though that has not been proved yet, but our research will contribute to verifying if that is the case. And again, each dot is a single simulation. So we know that there is, for combining flow at least, there is a linear relationship between a normalized volumetric entropy generation rate for the system and the dominant Reynolds number. And the dominant Reynolds number would just be the higher of the two Reynolds numbers when you're converging them at a T-junction. So our fifth deliverable is to conduct CFD simulations for each flow case. So all of those simulations that I just showed would just be representative of a single flow case. And so the software that we use to do that, we use SolidWorks to model the system, ANSYS ISM CFD for the meshing and the refinement, ANSYS Fluent to carry out our analysis, and Visit, which is an open source post-processing software to get the images that you've seen. The hardware that we're using for an on-campus workstation, we're using that to just model and mesh our systems. But in order to conduct the simulations, we're exporting everything to our high-performance computing environment, Buddy, which is the supercomputer we now have at UCO. So on this, we can operate Fluent virtually to set up our runs, and then export the setup to then run through command line programming on the supercomputer so that we can take advantage of its multiple nodes and cores.
Okay, to track our individual and group progress over the course of the semester, and as well, or plan for future tasks through the end of next semester, we use the Gantt chart, and this is the entire chart. The next slide has a kind of a zoomed in snapshot so you can actually see how we've organized things. And we've also kind of kept track of when we completed deliverables. And for next semester, kind of our plan is to kind of fine tune our design, get the whole system experiment ready. There's still a few things we need to get done before we're actually ready to use it for experiments that could produce publishable results. After that's all done, after it's completely experiment ready, we'll begin performing those experiments with for 3 different flow cases and over a range of Reynolds numbers. And then we will conduct simulations to match each of those flow cases and each Reynolds number. As you've already seen some images, we've begun doing a little bit of that, but we'll match each of those with the simulations and also PIV analysis to confirm the fully developed profile. Here's a summary of our budget for this semester. The only thing that we were able to use from previous senior design groups was the square channel. Everything else has been redesigned because we wanted to be able to achieve those multiple flow cases and also have the real-time outputs of all the sensors. So this is kind of listing all the parts we had to order to achieve that system. So we want to thank Dr. Abubed. He's helped some with the printed circuit board. Dr. Lemley, our advisor, the CMS Tech team, they've helped us out a lot getting the cluster logins and everything set up. And then Lillian's also helped with the ACB. Are there any questions?
I have a question. So that servo motor system is there just to indicate when the flow is fully developed, right?
Yes.
Okay, but did you guys, like the entrance length or the length over which the flow will become fully developed, did you guys made any measurements to show?
Yes, to verify our system even worked, you can do all the calculations by hand. The volumetric flow sensors do work, and so using that, we can get the volume flow rates, take the velocity out from that, and calculate the entry length. using
So you did
entry
not
length.
display the velocity profile over the cross section. You just measured the average velocity, right? From the
Right.
volume
For
flow.
the entry
Okay.
length, it just requires the average velocity. So, and then that system right now is just indicating the entry length of the fluid. It can then be flipped around to indicate the length of the fluid become fully developed after leaving a junction, which is completely unpublished at this point. An equation for that.
We would eventually like to implement on that indicator, we would like to have a laser and a camera to actually perform the PIV analysis at that point, so we can confirm the velocity profile and confirm that it's actually the correct entry length.
No, he just answered my. I have similar question about if they actually have used the PIV to get a velocity profile to confirm your computational models actually predict the right place.
Well, to further
Because someone mentioned that somehow fully developed is uniform, but that's just probably not what you meant, right? But it's actually parabolic
I
later.
think I said,
Okay.
sorry, I did say uniform, referring to the contour cross-sectional slices, because that's not actually showing it's fully developed. I had to actually, get numerical values to confirm the velocity magnitudes that it was fully developed. So I just was using those in conjunction with the cross-sectional slices to show that it was a uniform profile.
And to further answer the question, we have used PIV in conjunction with our indicator to verify that the fluid is fully developed there, because that is being published in one of the graduate students' thesis. So,
We have a slide with PIV as well.
yeah, this is an example of the analysis that we've done for that particular thesis. If you have any question about how PIV works, I can explain that. But the contour down here, I've written a program to back out what the true profile should be based off of the fluid parameters, and then the green would be the experimental results. The only thing that needs to be modified in the program is to look for the non-slip condition, because PIV lab has errors at the walls due to the zero velocity. So.
And you're gonna use PIV to further move on to entropy stuff, right?
Yes. Yes, so we started with entry length, then once we confirm that, then we know that the PIV can work for the entry generation as well.
Is there any question?
Yes.
You guys mentioned also that you have tried to find a relation between the entropy generation and mixing.
Yes.
So have you measured any mixing from this? Quantify the efficiency?
We have not yet. Right now, we're just trying to get the relationship between the dominant Reynolds number and the downstream distance for the fluid to become fully developed, as well as entry generation, so that we can know how to better quantify what the mixing should be. Because we're only going to use one fluid, because we just have one sum. So we want to ultimately have where we should do PIV to track the particles to verify if it's been fully mixed or not.
But again, also you're using the laminar flow. If your channel is just a square channel, so if there is any mixing happening, that will give you the diffusion very low. Do you have any plan for improve your design some way that you can increase the efficiency and then quantify?
So we're kind of waiting on a suspected correlation between entropy generation and mixing efficiency, and then our system will just use the entropy generation, if there is a correlation, to then determine what Reynolds number combinations can drive up entropy generation, which we are assuming is related to the mixing efficiency, which we're still waiting on those results. Which we won't be able to conduct necessarily that analysis. This will be working in conjunction with those analyses.
Since you mentioned the printed circuit board, we have our new lab associate, Thiago, he's sitting in the back. He's an expert in PCB machine, so if you need any help with the printed circuit board, just go to his office. Okay, thank you.